Okay, we are rolling. Good morning, everybody. My name is Hilary Stupa. I am a developer with Qdabra. And this morning, we're going to just talk about a few new features that have been added to DBXL 3.4. So this is just about released. We've got it installed on a few customer sites. There may be one more change coming, but we're very close to having this out for our public download. So without further ado, here's our agenda. We're just going to talk about the new features in the DBXL 3.4 release. There's a couple new features added to existing web services. We added a few new methods to the user key service, and we've got a new feature that we're calling reminders that we want to demo for you so you can learn more about that. And we're going to do a little bonus at the end talking about some registry entries that can help legacy apps work with SharePoint multi-factor authentication. So let's look at lock and unlock document for user first. So currently we have a lock document and an unlock document method in the document service. You may or may not have used these. We also have a with user key version of the document service. Now that's generally used in environments like Forms Viewer, where we don't have a network accessible version of DBXL. DBXL is off on its own Azure server, for example. What happens in this instance is that we're using a key, a security key, to give the form access to DBXL. So if you use the lock document method, you end up locking it for the user that key belongs to. Now, as you might imagine, as a form designer, if you then query to find out who has it locked, you don't have any very interesting information to present to your user. So we have added these new parameters to lock and unlock document where you can pass in a username. So as a forms designer, when you then call the lock document method, you can pass in the user's actual name. Perhaps you've gotten it from the user profile service or from some other approach. And now you can tell that method what the user's name is. And that way, if you then query to see who has the lock, you can surface actual information of interest to your end user. You can say, no, you can't access this. John Doe has it locked. And then the user has the capability of taking action, going and talking to John saying, hey, you still working on this? If you use this new parameter, if you intentionally then unlock the document instead of just letting it expire, you got to pass in the same username, right? That's part of it. It's like, well, we want to make sure that you are the same user. And we've added a new parameter of expiration minutes just to give you a little more granular control over the locking. We're not going to demo this. I just wanted to let you know about it being available. The other thing I wanted to let you know about is we've added two more methods to the document service that's the with user key service, which is the one I was just talking about that we use a lot in Forms Viewer forms, especially when we're using SharePoint Forms Viewer, right? Because we need to be able to talk to our DBXL instance. And so these methods get document history and get document version. These have been available in the DBXL document service. We simply made them also available in the with user key service. Now, the with user key service has a subset of the document services methods. There's a lot of methods in the document service. So we've really just added them to the with user key version as needed. And what that means is if you're working on a form and you're using the with user key service and there's a method you need to be added to it, just email me. You guys know where to reach me. It's hilary.stupa@qdabra.com. Email me. We'll get it in there for you. Okay, so don't be shy to ask if there's something you need to be added to that service. We're happy to make those changes. Okay. So moving forward to the exciting part. So reminders are new, and you could probably call them notifications. Notifications or reminders is kind of what we're working towards here. So we've got two different kind of paradigms for reminders. And the first one is sort of an on-demand scenario. We've added a new web service. It's called Send Reminders. you pass it an array of document IDs. And what the web method does is it goes and looks at all of the email mappings for the document type for that document ID. If any of them are applicable, then it will go ahead and resend that email. So you might have, for example, an expense report that when it's submitted, it sends an email to the reportee's manager. And you might have, for example, a dashboard that shows the status of all of those. And then with this new method, what you could do is you could look at all of those and you could say, oh yeah, look, that was submitted 10 days ago and it's still not in an approved state. You can check a little box, hit a button, and resend that original email. And so I think we'll just go ahead and have Mel show you a quick demo of that. Mel, hopefully you can present okay. I think I made you an organizer.
Yeah, we're going to try here. Thanks, Hillary. Actually, it's disabled for me. The show screen button is disabled. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Let me make you the presenter. I think making you the organizer wasn't enough. So now what happens?
Okay, yeah, I can see the dialogue now. Let me try and share now.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Can you see my form?
Yes.
My demo form?
Yes, I can see your form. Perfect.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I see familiar faces here, although I can't see your faces, familiar names. So here's the demo form that we prepared for you. So right now you're seeing documents here. It's coming from a doc type in our DBXL called notifications. And these are just the past notifications that we've that were previously set for sending future reminders. And just for show and tell here, let me click one of these forms, so to speak. So you'll see here I have a couple of dates, and they are future dates. So this means that again, they've already been submitted to DBXL, shared to the database, and so when we get to 4/19th and all these dates, emails will be sent out. So those are future reminders, automatically get sent out. But what we want to do with the send reminders method that Hillary just talked about is to actually force sending those emails, so to speak. So I'm just going to select maybe a couple forms here for sending manual reminders. So I hit the send button there. So I passed these doc IDs to the web service and then queried the actual web service. And then we're going to wait for my mailbox to, yep, it's the emails are starting to come here. And I'm going to receive a couple because I selected a couple documents there. And while those emails are coming in, and I don't mean to intimidate you with the actual reminders that I have for this form. Let's look at this guy here. And Hillary will talk more about how these are set up.
Right, yeah, I'm going to go through how these are set up in DAT. Right now, could you click on the email tab though? So what this send reminders method actually does is, if you go back to select mapping, what it does is basically for a document type, any of these email render mappings that apply get resent. So all of these doc IDs happen to be for this particular doc type. If they were for different doc types and you selected them, it would be on a per document type basis. I hope that makes sense. And what happens is that for a given doc ID, any applicable emails get resent. So if you click on one of these that has a condition, I don't know which ones might. You do though. There we go. Yeah. So if, for example, my doc ID had this email mapping, but the form status was not equal to approve where that additional condition is, then an email would not get sent. So the render mapping conditions do apply, right? But it just gives you a way to basically resend these emails. Make sense? Nobody can answer me. Except for you, Mel. You tell me if it makes sense. But as you can see, email are flooding in.
Right. Right, with the corresponding subjects here. And right here, you can tell based on the subject that these are different emails, and sort of like reminding the user to go ahead and click on this link to submit your form. It's going to expire soon. It's going to expire tomorrow on this date and what have you. So again, these are just to remind your users that they should do something. Call of actions, something like
Perfect.
that, right?
Thanks. And
I
I'm
think
gonna
that's it.
go back to the screen with the slides for right now, and then we'll pop back to this demo, and you can show them your other reminder features that you've got in your form too. I'm sorry, the predefined. But let's talk about those preset reminders now. Predefined. Kind of, I've been making up these words as we've been building the feature, right? Because I'm not really sure what to call them. But conceptually, the idea is that Reminders tab in DAT allows you to create reminders or notifications for specific email mapping. The reminder is going to use the email mapping for any of its settings. So your email mapping says send this view to these people, from these people, with this subject, has a condition. All of those things are going to apply when your reminder is sent. They can be sent one time based on a date time value in your form, or they can be sent every X hours or days until a condition based on your form data evaluates to false. Also, the email mapping that you've associated your reminder with, if it has a condition, that has to be met. Okay, so like we were looking at that email mapping and we saw that it had a condition of form status equals approved. Any reminder that uses that render mapping, before the reminder is going to go, the render mapping condition has to be met, that the email status is equal to approved. Okay, so there's several conditions to keep in mind. I've tried in the UI to make it a little easier to kind of see that, but as always, with UI, it's kind of like what makes sense to me may not make sense to everyone, so feedback will be welcome. Once you create a reminder, just kind of a heads up, you have to delete it and re-add it if you want to make changes to it. That's because we're dealing with the future. And so when a document is submitted to DBXL, we take a look at the data, we take a look at the email mapping conditions, and we take a look at the reminder conditions. Then, if applicable, we create a document in the system that is a reminder and that will trigger that email being sent in that future date and time. So if you go back and then change your mind and say, no, I want this reminder set when status equals not approved or something along those lines, we don't have a way of guessing your intent at that point. Those reminders that have already been created under the other conditions, I don't know if they should be sent, if they should not be sent. And so just to keep things from becoming overly complex, we've gone ahead and just determined that if you want to change it, you have to delete and re-add it. I think it makes it really clear that the old reminders that were created under this previous condition will not be sent. Just sort of a heads up there. Also, if you'd like, you can send reminders or these notifications without the original email being sent. We've got some situations where when a form is first submitted, we don't want it to send an email, but we would like it to send an email in 7 days if the status is still the same. So in those cases, there's a little trick you can use in DAT to handle for that. So I'm going to show you the DAT stuff for this. And again, this is a new feature. And if you've been using DBXL for a while, you know that when we add new features, we kind of tend to organically grow them a little as we go into future releases. And I wouldn't be surprised if this reminders feature does change as we come up into scenarios that aren't quite what we were originally envisioning for it. But for right now, this is what we're starting with. We wanted to start with something, right? So here's the reminder tab, which Mel showed you quickly. When you create a new reminder, you give it a name. I'm going to be fancy and just stomp on the keyboard. You have to select an email mapping that you wish to use. I've got 3 available to me. If your email mapping has a condition, I think this one does, I'm showing it right here. if your email mapping is sending a specific view, it's going to, as an attachment, it shows up here. Okay, just so you kind of got that additional information. A conditional reminder would be one where something in the form indicates when to stop sending it. So let's just say my status, and we're not checking your XPaths here, so you've got to be careful. Make sure your XPath is correct. Okay, don't type nonsense in the box. So at any rate, we're saying, in this case, that if it's greater than 300, we're going to send a reminder as long as the status equals approved. This makes no sense, and we're going to send it every 2 days or every 4 days or hours, however you determine you want to use this, right? So then at this point, once we save this, right, this guy's disabled. If you decide you want to change him, you just delete him and re-add him. We've got a little information here there to let you know about that. And what will happen now is every 4 days, for every single form submitted after the reminder was created, right? For every form submitted after the reminder was created, if the total is greater than 300 and the status equals approved, we're going to be sending an email. And it will continue forever until the form status is not equal to approved. Just something to be aware of, okay? And then we can also add what we're calling predefined reminders. And those, instead of having this kind of duration that continues until a condition is met, they use a field XPath, right? So you might have a field that's called my send date, right? And in this case, as long as the total is greater than 300, the email will get sent on the date time in my send date. And again, we're not, pre-checking whether or not this is actually a date time field. So if you store nonsense in there, garbage in, garbage out, you're not going to get an email if the value in there is A, B, C, D, E, F. But if it's a date, then you'll get an email. And you can also add an additional condition here. So if you only wanted it to send on this date, if a current status was met, right? You can also add a condition there. So that's generally how you create these reminders. They're forward-looking. So once this is created, it's documents submitted after the point this was created that get affected. Just like with email mappings, you create the email mapping. It doesn't affect anything previously submitted. They're integrated with email mappings. The trick to the situation where you don't want to send an email on initial submit, but you would like to send emails X days after, or based on a condition or a date in a form, all you have to do is in your email mapping, just don't select either of these two boxes right here. And so what happens is your initial document submit does not send an email, right? But any reminder, I'm going to just get back here. I've got one set up. But any reminder that's set up for that email mapping, as long as it's marked active, we'll go ahead and send. Okay, so that's the little trick there. And I'm going to make you presenter again, Mel, so you can just show those preset reminders.
Thank you. Okay, so here's our same form on a different view. So I've had those reminders to base on the condition when form status equals approved. So I'm going to say approved to that. And I'm just going to send it to myself here. I can type my name correctly. Okay, so these are the dates. Each of the XPaths of these dates are specified in my reminder mappings, just like what Hillary showed you. So I can specify my dates here. So what's going to happen is on the 16th, a reminder will come out. An email will be sent to myself there with whichever the view in the form I selected for that reminder, and then again on the 22nd at this time. And I can also specify the exact time I want this email to go out. So at 8 a.m. on 4, it automatically changed there on 4/16th. I'm going to receive that first email. But for demos purposes today, I'm going to just set these dates to today's date, and then by minute, minute apart from each other so we can see when they come in. And you're seeing the dates here. I have done some calculations there behind the scenes so that it's in specific time, because it's actually following the DBXL server's time, right, Marie? So I'm gonna wait for that email to come. So I should receive 4, but it's gonna be by minute. So I don't want to bore you while they come in. And let's see, I think these might be from
Might be for
Joanne.
some
She's
other
testing
testing. Yeah,
something.
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
Joanne's actively testing this project while we're using it for the webinar. Sure.
So we're waiting for the almost 26th minute here, because it's in second, or was 51. So, yep. Was I right, Hillary? This is the DBXL machine's time, right? The server time.
Yes, that's correct. So it is using the server date time. So keep that in mind if
Right.
your server is running in a different time zone than you are. You do have to adjust for that, because of the server date time is what we're taking into account for when to send things.
Yeah. So I started that with a now, and then waiting for the email didn't come. So I just realized that it's looking at the time zone. So here's our first email. That's the 26th. And you see here, I don't have anything else for the reminder because I didn't specify my subject for this, but there's just that static text that I configured in the reminder mapping. And then again, minute, and then the next minute it's going to come in again. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. And so you can use these in your form. You can use these in your document type to allow you to continue to kind of send these emails on a regular sort of schedule. As long as something doesn't get done, I can certainly envision. Again, I always roll back to the idea of an expense report because I can certainly envision situations where it would be handy to be letting somebody know every 7 days that they've got expense reports that they haven't approved, or things of that nature. So hopefully these will become useful for you. Again, it's a brand new feature, so I expect it's going to grow and change over time. And we welcome any feedback you might have on things that might make this more useful to you. If you need a hand getting DBXL 3.4 installed, or if you're running an older version, we'd be happy to help you get that upgraded so you can try these out and then, again, give us some feedback. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, Mel, for preparing that demo and showing it. Your forms always look so pretty. I sent her something that was just a hot mess, and she managed to make it lovely. So finally, this is just a little bonus thing. It was something we were discussing internally the other day. If you are wanting to use multi-factor authentication, you may have run into issues with authenticating in SharePoint Designer. You may have run into issues authenticating in InfoPath. And so there is a little registry edit, and the link is here. I'm going to paste it into chat for you. You guys will also have it in the webinar slides. And this talks about enabling modern authentication for Office 2013 clients. And these are the registry keys that need to be added. We tested this internally just the other day. Patrick enabled multi-factor authentication on my account because we weren't using it generally. With these 2 registry keys added, I can connect to SharePoint in InfoPath. I can publish my form in InfoPath, and it also allows me to use SharePoint Designer with Office 365 with multi-factor authentication enabled. So it's just something to keep in mind if you haven't been using multi-factor authentication because of these legacy things. You might want to consider enabling it and adding those registry keys. It's worth a try. We have one instance where I'm a little perplexed because I think the user has the registry keys enabled because of SharePoint Designer access, but there's still some challenges in InfoPath. But in general, it's worth trying. I've noticed that when these are set and I've got MFA on, I can access my site in InfoPath, and when they're not, I can't. So that is it, kind of short and sweet today. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to chat them in to the questions. And if not, I want to tell you about Forms Viewer. If you are not already using Forms Viewer, you might want to check it out. We just released 6.1 in the online store. I think that's coming for on-prem soon. And it's got new features all the time, great improvements all the time. The latest version addresses some interesting issues about third-party cookie restrictions in the browser. So definitely check out those release notes. And I think you probably got an email newsletter telling you about some of these changes. So you might want to just check out Forms Viewer if you haven't yet. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. If you get a chance to fill out the survey, please do. I will be sending you these slides, and as always, welcome any feedback from you, and that's hillary.stupa@qdabra.com, or you can email support@qdabra.com. We always like to hear from you. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and thanks again, Mel.
Sure thing. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Okay.